much. There's only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. I'd like you to repeat that with me. There is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. We say this and we know this and we absolutely affirm there is absolutely nothing outside of God. There is no place where we start and God stops. We are all one. Therefore, by definition, already each one of us is living a spiritual life, aren't we? Each one of us is making our way through life by choosing from the many possibilities that there are and hoping that we make the right choices and the best choices that we can. Some of us have done a pretty good job of us, and some of us have had the best outcomes in our life without ever even having to realize that we're living a spiritual life until, oops, I just got smacked with a cosmic 2x4. And it hurt. It hurt me physically and it hurt me emotionally. Now, it's time to take a moment and to size up what's been going on in my life up until now. Now, unlike most of you, I'm sure, when I paint that picture, it's not always so bright and beautiful. Sometimes I see things there that are not so pretty. And when I looked at the truth of things, and I looked at what I'd done, and I looked at how I would prefer my life to be, I decided it might be time to come to a realization, a deeper realization of who and what I really am and what choices I really want to make in my life. You know, we just sang that song, Why Have I Come to Earth? Do I remember? Why have I taken birth? Wow. How do I really, really want to live my life? And so I get to look at myself and I get to get a deeper sense of who and what I am. And as I do that, as each one of us does that, we get to develop a faith in our higher power, a faith in who and what we truly are. We become aware of that spiritual nature that, like I just said, we already are. We have no choice. There is no place where God stops. But then we get to embark on a path of conscious spiritual living. Conscious spiritual living. Ernest Holmes provided us with the tools. And it can be a joyful journey if we take the right path and we use the right tools. Ernest Holmes showed us ways that we could deepen our connection with all that is. Ways that we can teach ourselves about life, about ourselves, about the divine, about how we want to show up, how we want to be. In Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says that spirituality is rather an elusive thing. It really is not easily defined. But according to the science of mind, spirituality is our recognition of the universe as a living presence of good, as a living presence of beauty and truth and hope and love and joy and harmony and enthusiasm. Each one of us uses spirituality when we pray, when we do our treatments, when we meditate. We cannot really separate our conscious mind from our unconscious mind. So whether we realize it or not, we are using spiritual practice, spiritual living, our spiritual truth in all of our life and all of our affairs. Spirituality is a constant and consistent effort to feel the presence of God at all times. And you know, it's really hard to express it in words because spirituality is not a statement, it's an attitude. It's a way of being. It's who and what we truly are, and it can't be taught. No one can teach you or me how to be spiritual, but you can feel it and you can practice it, and you can do it, and you can embody it. Now, sometimes we stumble, and sometimes we fall as the experiences that we happen around us change. And often, when that happens, we get to get back up, embrace the lesson, and resume our lives and resume those spiritual practices. We reinforce our thinking on what it is truly we want to embody in our lives. And Howard Thurman, in An Inward Journey, says, "Whatever may be the occasion there comes, a deep necessity which leads you finally into the closet within yourself. It is here that you raise the real questions about yourself. The leading one is, what is it, after all, that I amount to ultimately? Such a question cuts through all that is superficial and trivial in life to the very nerve center of our being." So, how many of you remember the story of Buddha? Buddha led a very sheltered life. His father kept him in the compound, in the palace, until he was 29 years old. 29 years old. He'd never had any life experience. He was very sheltered. His dad didn't want him to see anything that was uncomfortable. So at 29, he ventured out of the palace for the very first time, accompanied by his charioteer. Can you picture the charioteer, and he's going out into the world for the very first time? He's never left the palace before. Well, on his journey, the first thing he saw, the first sight, was an old man. He'd never seen an old man before. And Chana said to him, "Aging is something that happens to all of us." And he was not aware of that. And then the second sight he saw was a person, a sick person, suffering with a disease. And once again, the prince was surprised at the sight, and he asked Chana about it, and he said, "Oh, yes, all things are subject to disease and pain." And that was something he had never encountered before. And then the third sight was a dead body. And once again, Chana explained to him that death is a fact of life, that ultimately everyone dies. And after seeing this, he was very troubled because he had not known about any of these experiences before. And finally, the fourth sight, he saw a monk who was devoting himself to finding the cause of human suffering. This sight gave him hope that he too might be released from the suffering, because, they believed that you died and came back, and you died and came back, and you died and came back until you finally got it right. And so he wanted to be released from that cycle of having to be reborn. So after observing that, he returned to the palace. And then his father threw this party with the dancing girls and all of that. And when the party was over and everyone was, passed out or whatever they did, he decided that really wasn't what he wanted to do. And he had his charioteer accompany him, and he released his horse, he gave him all of his belongings, he donned a monk's robe, and he joined the people. And when he did that, he found a group that was meditating, and he decided that he was going to meditate as well. And we all know the story of how he meditated until he was enlightened. But he also thought about fasting, but he realized, it really isn't going to do you any good if you truly fast, if you die before you reach that point of enlightenment. And so he gave that up. And he cut through everything that he found to be trivial. So the point of this is that spirituality is not the goal. Spirituality is the journey, and it's a journey that we're all on, and we never finish. We're never done. We just keep going, and all of us pass through periods where we experience pain and questioning and doubt. And all this time I thought it was just me, But look around you. Look at what's happening in the world today. Change, turmoil, unrest is happening all over the world. The entire planet is getting a chance to experience change. And the difference is how we react to it, how you and I react to it as individuals, as a community, and as a planet. Living a spiritual life means that each one of us is a choice. We get to choose how we respond. We can change our direction and we can make better choices. That's always an opportunity for us. I don't know about you, but I get ample opportunities to make different choices. So how do you define yourself? Do you define yourself by what you have done poorly? Or do you define yourself by what you have done well? Or do you define yourself by the possibilities of the good that you can accomplish? Because truly, we are multifaceted individuals, and we are capable of doing many great things, each one of us. Shunryu Suzuki says, each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement. I love that. Do not question whether or not you're spiritual, because the fact is we all are. We're spiritual. You have your roots in divine mind, and your consciousness comes from communing with the divine. Practice makes perfect, I hear, so each one of us gets to practice, practice, practice. Ernest Holmes says in A New Design for Living, we must not lose sight of the fact that what we are talking about has nothing to do with willpower. We are not forcing anything to happen. We do not coerce God, we cooperate. As we recognize God's universal nature as good, as the source of all abundance, and as the perfection that resides within us, then we may come to accept all these things. We do not create them of ourselves. We accept them, and in our acceptance of them, they are manifested in and as our experience. So, as we continue to practice those spiritual practices and refine them, and pick the ones that work for us, because the same one doesn't necessarily work for everyone, we get to listen to that inner presence, listen for that guidance, and let us live our lives more fully, moving toward deeper oneness, a deeper wholeness. And that does not mean we don't fall off the path. On the contrary, many of us do, and some of us roll clear to the bottom of the hill. But then we get to get up, dust ourselves off, head back up that hill, and begin again. And we let go of our, some of us just carry those mistakes with us like that. And some of us get to learn how to let go of them, lighten our load, and move on. With each error that you make, or I make, we get a little spiritual nugget, a little lesson that helps us to become more. It propels us forward to higher and better things. Ernest Holmes again says, the universe does not toil, it flows. Should not each one of us then stimulate himself to the act, not of the intercession for the greater givingness of God, but for the more complete opening of the channel for the outflow of that which shall eternally inflow. So with each misstep, we get to take a step back and we get to examine. We get to examine what we might do differently. We get to reaffirm our goal. We get to open that channel that we have with that all that is. Jesus said, it is done unto us as we believe. And when we change what we believe, each one of us changes what outpictures in our lives. So if you don't like what you're looking at right now, perhaps it might be important to examine just exactly what it is that we believe. Because we are an open channel through which God can flow if we remove the blockage. According to the Dalai Lama, to become what we want to be, we must first embrace who we are at this very moment. We must first accept ourselves, accept our humanness, and understand that imperfections on a physical level do not correlate to imperfections on a spiritual level. Our being is on a spiritual journey. The past is the past, and the future's not here yet. But we are here. We are right here, and we need to be present in this present moment. And it can take some discipline. So we get to be aware of our breathing, and we get to be aware of our oneness. And so I'm going to teach you, guys, an exercise. You can do it with me. I taught it to the kids in Montana a couple weeks ago. I want you to make a fist. Okay, and then I want you to hold up this finger. And as I go up this way, as you go up your finger, you breathe in, and then you exhale. Then you breathe in, and then you exhale. And you breathe in, and then you exhale. And then you breathe in, and then you exhale. And then you breathe in, and then you exhale. And that is called taking 5. So you get to take 5 to center yourself and to be present in the moment. And you know, it really works when you're having that tense moment at home or at work. You put your hand under the table and you do this silently to yourself, because it allows you to center and it allows that angst to flow away. Be compassionate with yourself. Understand that it's okay. Whatever it is, it's okay. And you don't have to be right all the time. Well, I tell my husband I have to be right all the time. But we really don't have to be right all the time. And it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know that answer. Sometimes it's hard, but the truth is, I don't know. So Ernest Holmes says, if you could realize the tremendous power of attraction that holds everything in place, it is yours. It is yours, this gift. It is the divine birthright of every living soul. But we limit ourselves by thought of limitation. Now we must open the doors of our consciousness and expand and expand and expand, and no longer think in terms of the backyard lot, but in terms of the infant nature, in terms of the universe. So when we are living our spiritual life, when we are affirming our oneness with the divine, life seems to flow pretty well. When we use our spiritual practices, whatever works for you, and if you want to learn some new spiritual practices, you can attend those classes that Reverend Don was talking about. Prayer and meditation, centering, breathing is always good. I really like that Take 5 exercise. It's good for me. But whatever it is, allow those spiritual practices to work for you. Allow yourself to not resist the divine. Allow yourself to lead a life in deeper communion with the One. Life will go so much easier when you do that. Ernest Holmes says the power behind all things is of itself without limit. It is all power. In us, it becomes what we permit it to be. Our destiny is in our own hands. When we rise to an elevated state of consciousness where we see all things in their completeness and know that an all-wise power is behind it all, we will see that the infinite could wish for us only that which expresses itself in limitless terms. So often we look at our finite self and we limit what we are, what we can become, and what we can do, because we are truly capable of great things, each and every one of us. In this Rumi song by Jennifer Russell, she says so much. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of learning. It doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come yet again. Come, come. And that is Rumi. And it doesn't matter where we are in life. It doesn't matter how much water has flown under the bridge. It is never, ever too late to get back on a conscious spiritual path. It's always available to us. Look in the mirror. Get really up close and personal with that person. And ask it, who am I anyway? Who am I? Do it often. Dust off Dust off those spiritual tools and learn some new ones and practice and practice and practice. Allow yourself to become more. And when you roll down that hill, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, forgive yourself for being human, get over it. You know, sometimes, yeah, I'm human, I got to get over that. It's all part of our journey, and all we need to do is put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. Put one foot in front of the other and understand that we have one foot in the divine and we have one foot in the human, and if we lean a little more towards the divine, life gets much easier. When we allow Spirit to lead the way, it's a much more joyful journey. I love this little quote by Michelle Brunetti. It says, "When you learn to live within, you will never live without." That's really a powerful statement. When you learn to live within, you'll never live without. So I have homework for you this week, of course, and that is to go home and to look in the mirror and ask yourself, who do I think I am? And who do I want to be? And then remind yourself that you are an individualized expression of the divine. No less, no less. And then when you have those moments of doubt, be sure to take 5. So let us pray. Sweet, sweet Spirit, Father, Mother, God, that whole and holy presence in which we live and breathe and have our being, that divine essence that breathes us, God that is life and love and peace and joy and happiness and wholeness, God who is truly all there is. I know that I am one with that whole and holy presence. And if that is true for me, that is true for each and every person here. One with the one with power, one with love, one with perfection, one with abundance. So as I speak my word this day, I know that we move through this day and through the ensuing week, filled with the powerful presence of Spirit, that light of the divine, knowing that we are walking on our spiritual path, moving ever upwards, knowing that truth and love permeates all of our affairs. The abundance of the divine is ours. Health and wholeness vibrates in every cell and fiber of our being. We are whole, perfect, and complete, and I'm grateful. I am so grateful for that loving presence that allows my humanness to show. I am grateful for that loving presence that loves me just the way I am. I am grateful for the strength and the power and the wisdom that supports each and every one of us on our journey to wholeness. I release this word now to the perfect working of the perfect law that always, always and only says yes. Please join me in affirming. And so it is. Amen.